events throughout the mid-70s and 80s. He's an author, a world-class coach, legendary in Cairns. Next up on our panel is Craig Anderson from Western Australia. He is the founder of the Clever Buoy system, and he has made this 10,000-mile journey to be with us and to share the night with us. Also, many meetings yesterday and today, and hopefully that goodbye breakfast will be really yummy tomorrow. Craig is a professional scientist who attended University of Western Australia, also went to Australian National University and received his MBA at the University of New England in New South Wales. Craig is the founder of the Smart Marine Systems, world traveler, and is a lifetime surfer who in the 70s started experiencing an alarming number of first-hand shark attacks in the dangerous waters of Western Australia. This prompted his personal journey to find modern solutions to keep his family safe, friends, fellow surfers, to be in the water again. His journey and technology have now gone global. Welcome to the panel. On our home court, a little bit closer than the 10,000-mile journey, is Cynthia. Cynthia Wigren, stand up for us, please, is the Executive Director of the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy, AWSC, who many of you are familiar with, and we appreciate all of your time and energy and everything you've done to help lead this. Winton is a scientist and a shark researcher who is pursuing her PhD at UMass Darthmouth School for Marine Science and Technology. Welcome to the panel. Okay. I don't see Leslie here yet, but we hope that she will show up. She's a chief ranger at the National Seashore and has been to many meetings, and we greatly appreciate her energy and time that she's given us already on the phone and behind the scenes. We have a local group called the Regional Shark Working Group, the RSWG, which is comprised of our 6 abutting towns, and includes representatives such as Nate Sears. Nate Sears is the Natural Resource Manager of the Town of Orleans, including Dawson Beach and that all lengthy journey of the outer reaches too, which so many of us enjoy. And then of course, also a part of this Shark Regional Working Group is Cynthia, Cynthia is a part of this group, and Meg also. I'd also like to introduce other members of our panel of this wave riding group. This is a gentleman that I've had the privilege of working alongside of, sharing hundreds of emails with, phone calls, spending time on the coastal beaches, and he shares his passion and has done the majority of the work to go ahead and put this together. Chris Zocca. He's asked me to be the moderator tonight, and Mark Angelolo from Orleans, and I do this for my love of the ocean, for all of us as concerned citizens, as a waterman, and I know together, with all the parts, we can make a difference. So we got this. I'd also like to thank the others that are not up here in the audience tonight. Drew Taylor, for all of your time that you put in. Heather Doyle, wow, absolutely amazing. Joanne Leary, Charles Kochi, Carl and Betty, Chris Kelly, Shred Hawthorne, and so many others that have been behind the scenes and helped us. What we're hoping to do this evening is to open a dialogue with these public officials who are working diligently on the issues of shark safety and learn about the steps that they're taking to address the issues that we have. We're also appreciative for their sharing their information about shark mitigation, management technologies, and we're interested in learning about how other countries are utilizing these technologies and systems and making them more applicable to Cape Cod. Especially learning about the clever buoy system and its technologies that contributed to sonar and artificial intelligence and detects sharks when it enters a protected area. As I mentioned earlier, that there are the public officials of the 6 lower Cape towns, along with the National Seashore and the AWSC, are working on these shark issues through the Regional Shark Working Group. And our group of watermen and women have spent a lot of time, and I can turn that off, a lot of time as concerned watermen, well-seasoned watermen and women, and worked alongside of other concerned citizens. Every day during the summer, we're in the water, and many of us all year long. And the decisions that are being made with shark mitigation and management will impact us as much as anyone else. So we want to work with the RSWG and become a part of the decision-making process and hopefully be a part of the solution. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and start off with the panel, and Ian, you're on first, and I'd like you to welcome Ian Cairns once again, please.
Thank you very much, Mark, and thank you to all of you for inviting me and welcoming me to Cape Cod. I've travelled the world, and I've travelled most of the coast of the United States of America, and it's a really great pleasure to come out here to Cape Cod. I've always looked at that big hook out there in the ocean and just really wondered what it was like. And so, I was out in Provincetown by myself today, looking at the ocean and the offshore winds and no waves. And one of the things, there's a massive similarity between the Cape Cod area here in the Margaret River region of Western Australia, where I come from, in that there's a national park in Western Australia that spans the entire coastline there and provides security and also cleans up some of the messes that we created as kids driving our four-wheel drives through the bush searching for waves. I love the idea of wilderness. I grew up in Western Australia surfing by myself with dolphins and whales, always trying to find someone else to go surfing with me. I love the idea of, I had ear surgery last week, so I can't go surfing now, but I'm looking at the ocean and I've seen all of these great pictures that Mark's been posting on his Facebook page of these scalloped sandbars and beautiful clear water and great waves. And so I'm certain I'm going to come back here and surf with some of my friends and some of you guys. Surfing has been a wonderful adventure for me. And I've lived in California now for almost 30 years. My wife's a champion surfer. We've taken our boys, who are now 17, finishing high school, we've taken them surfing and stand-up paddling. Surfing has really been a wonderful life for us. And the experience of being in the ocean and sharing the joy of riding waves with my boys, with my wife, with my friends, has been really a big gift for me, and I know that all of you share the same experience with your families and friends. I'm in California. I'm out surfing 3 times at Santa Ana Free with my boys, and there are great white sharks in the water with us. In parallel to what's been happening here in Western Australia, where when I grew up, none of us ever saw a great white shark. We saw them, they were a novelty, they were off the continental shelf, they were gigantic. We never ever saw juvenile sharks. And when the protection of the species occurred in the mid-90s, all of a sudden there was juveniles in the waters of Perth. and down south, where I come from, 200 miles south of Perth. That was the first time anyone in our known history had seen great white sharks, and they went away and they came back and they began, unfortunately, attacking people. In Western Australia, last century there was 1 fatality. So far this century there's been 15. And it's swimmers, it's surfers, it's boogie boarders, it's snorkelers, it's divers. And I'm certain that these are all accidental attacks, but the net outcome is that it's very, very dangerous to go surfing in Murray River area in Western Australia. In parallel with the growth of the great white population, there's been a growth of whale population. And so there's migration of the whales, and when baby whales or older whales die, they wash up on the coast and they become a lure for sharks to congregate in a particular area. And we've learned in Australia is that you do not drag the whale ashore. You bury it on the beach because it leaches out oils and attracts sharks for years. Whales are now dragged far out to sea, and there's a massive hue and cry when a whale is buried on a beach. It's happening fairly regularly on the east coast as well. It's caused a fairly significant change of people's habits. People don't swim up and down the beach in Cottesloe anymore. 2 of those swimmers have been killed by great whites. People surf with their friends. In April, I was there when they had the World Tour event. There were 4 shark incidents that week. I was talking to the guy that got attacked at one of my cobblestones, one of my favourite places, the evening before he was attacked. It's a shocking experience, and you guys have experienced it recently when there is an invasion of what we consider our magic place. Coorama Bay is a central point of that coastline area. South Point never ever had a seal rookery. It now has a seal rookery off the end of it. There have been 6 shark attacks within a mile either side of that point, and there have been 3 fatalities, and this is of surfers. So it's become very, very personal. So I was out there surfing outside of the crowd, out the back by myself, and I suddenly realised, hang on, I better not sit down and put my legs in the water. Everyone's behaviour has changed. I mean, I still absolutely love the idea of being in the ocean and being in the wilderness. It's always been somewhat dangerous, but the odds are now shifting against us. And when I saw this exact same pattern occurring in Southern California, where my wife, when I first got together with her almost 30 years ago, she'd go, "Oh, we'll go to the beach. There's no sharks here. We'll just go surfing." Now, when my son wants to go down with his boogie board with his friends and go surfing in Laguna Beach, I'm kind of freaking out because I know for certain that there are great whites. And we've had possibly 3 generations of great whites at San Onofre, and they're kind of cute. They swing around and everyone interacts with them. And I'm thinking to myself, soon these will be adults, and this will get dangerous. And so I've become friends with 2 of the women who have survived shark attacks in our area. One, Leanne Darling at church, a really great surf break near Trestles that I serve. And the other one is a distance swimmer, Maria Kuzmorkas, who got attacked 2 years ago by great white off Corona del Mar. Both of those 2 incidences would have been fatalities if they were anything. And Craig and his group of science people, working with the University of Western Australia, the University of Aberdeen, where the original sonar technology comes from Scotland. Yeah, we're going to do this. So I became persona non grata because I overruled the administration and went to the politicos, and they agreed to put a pilot program for clever buoy in the water at Newport Beach. And we put it in deep water at Balboa Pier, where they run the junior lifeguard program. 1,300 kids in the junior lifeguard program, paying $750 each, in one of the most wealthy towns in the country, at Newport Beach. And the water is deep, and we throw our system in the water, and it's all wired up, and it's 5 sonars there, and there's computers, and information's going to the cloud. These guys have built an app, and for the first 30 days, nothing happened. And we meet with the city of Newport Beach, and the lifeguards report to the fire department. The fire chief goes, well, I surfed and there's no sharks at Balboa Pier. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, you might be right. 30 days with that, you know, we've seen one shark. Literally the next day, the weather changed. It got a little bit cooler and the water temperature dropped. And the detections went nuts. 4 a day, 5 a day. So over the 100-day period, we had 60 shark detections in a beach where there are no sharks. And I'm going, whoa, I can't even believe there are that many sharks there, because I've paddled out there and it's, you know, it's just like what I saw today. It's all offshore wind, but beautiful, smooth, it's ocean. I realized we have no idea what is under the water. And once under the water, the sonar system sees everything in the water column. It sees the bait balls, it sees the seals, it sees the dolphins, it sees all of these amazing animals. It's a really vibrant ocean community out there at Balboa Pier. And because of the artificial intelligence that Smart Marine System has developed, it recognises and is able to discern the difference between the swimming patterns of all those animals and the shark. Sharks swim sideways. And what's happened with those 60 detections, we have the parallel video from the sonar that when you look at it, it looks like a shark swimming. And so the Newport lifeguards, we've worked with them, they put drones up, but they were not able to actually visually sight the sharks that we'd seen. There was often a 15-minute gap between the alert and when the drone was up. The water was murky, so you couldn't see in the water. There's weed on the bottom, so you can't see a dark shark unless it's actually on the surface. And most of these sharks were probably in the middle of the water column. But the bottom line is, for me, I went, wow. I was being told by lifeguard captains, yeah, we'll believe it when we see it. So that's how I convinced Craig to spend $300,000 or $400,000 to come to America, to put it in the water, to prove that his system worked. And I feel incredibly vindicated that, you know, I've proven that there are now, and of course, it's not every shark in California is hanging at Balboa Pier. Exactly this scenario is going to be occurring everywhere in Southern California, where there is going to be a sizable population of juvenile. We had sharks, the system tells you how big it is. 6 to 8 foot, 8 to 10 foot, 10 to 12 feet. So you've got mature adults in the water there, you've got juveniles, you've got a whole mixture of families. And that information is part of what we can present in terms of evidence of how the system works. So now what is the solution here? We've since, in the recent election, both of our Republican people that I've spent a year and a half working on lost. So we've since met with Harley Rowder, who's our congressman, and he's on the environmental committee in DC. We've met with Connie Petrie Norris, who's a Laguna Beach resident. She is now in the California Assembly. Petrie Norris's comment was, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And that's what our evidence shows. If it swims like a shark, it's probably a shark. And if it's probably a shark, I want the shark alarm to go off. I want the people in the water, I want my boys, I want your kids, I want my friends to go, hang on, the shark alarm went off. We need to leave the water because in our safe zone that's been created, we know there's been an incursion by a big shark-like animal, and we probably should be prudent and leave the water. That information then goes to the first responders, the lifeguards, and they can put a jet ski in the water and go out in the ocean and go, oh, there's a shark, let's navigate this thing out of our swimming area. The other two pieces of information that occurred here in this incredible system, this clever buoy system, is that we had a weather station on that buoy. So in the app is live weather information. In the lifeguard's office is a screen with the barometric pressure, the wind, 7 days of it, the water temperature. We can put other sensors on there to tell us the turbidity, all sorts of environmental sensors on there, and all of that data is live. We have, or had, a live tag receiver. Dr. Chris Lowe has been tagging sharks all over Southern California for years. There's something like 200 of them. In that 100 days with 60 detections of sharks, not one tagged shark swam by. So what we have done is begun to create a ratio of tagged sharks versus untagged sharks. In the Balboa Pier, it's 0 to 60. So I personally think that the data that's getting generated by the clever buoy system, not only does it send off the shark alarm, but it creates an amazing research tool for you guys to analyze 100 days of 24/7 data at one location with weather information, all live, is a tool that will be a massive resource for the scientific community to use. And I'm all for interaction and working together to understand what's really going on out there. You know, when do they come? When do they leave? Where do they go? I mean, these are all sorts of hugely important pieces of information. So that's been my journey. And my journey, because of all of this work, because of my friendship here with Angelilla, which sometimes I regret. You guys all understand that we as water people and ocean people are a massive global fraternity, a tribe. I had people posting about me, go back to Australia. Well, I've lived in America almost 30 years. My 4 kids are dual citizens. I'm married to an American. I pretty much accepted I'm American too. Yeah. I will be getting my citizenship soon. I love this country. I love the place I live. I love our community. You know, because we can all be friends like instantly, and the only time we'll ever be bummed is when I get the best set wave. Which will probably happen. So I'm really, really happy that Chris and Mark have brought me out here to sort of tell my little story about how this happened. I'm super stoked that I can do something positive to help my community, which is the ocean community. I want you to understand that people have got to put their big boy pants on, and they've got to go out there and they have to actually advocate for our community with our elected officials, whether they be within the towns, within the counties, within the state, federally. We need to say, we as ocean users, we need a voice and we have rights. And we don't want to do anything crazy. We want to add to the body of knowledge, but we want our voice heard. Who's for that? Yeah. So thanks again for inviting me. I got about a million surf stories if anyone wants to talk. And I do want an invitation back when the waves are bigger. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was so inspirational, Ian, and so are you with your commitment to the ocean, the world, this this fraternal organization that we're all a part of, and just watching you is just uplifting. So thank you so much for taking the time. Continuing through on our panel, I'm going to ask Craig Anderson to come up, and he's going to introduce the clever buoy technology and discuss about integrated shark mitigation and tools and maybe some applications and hopes that we have for Cape Cod buoy. Thank you for traveling those 10,000 miles this far up here, and really quite a privilege to have you here. So let's hear it for Craig.
Wow, how do you follow on from that?
Do your science,
Yeah, look, obviously Ian, a very passionate person, and for those who I'll give him a bit of a plug now, for those of you who haven't bought his autobiography, please do go out and buy it. It's a great story, and a really inspirational one for all of us that love the ocean. My name's Craig Anderson, and I'm the founder and director of a company called Smart Marine Systems, and my journey on this started about 10 years ago. I'm actually a plant scientist by trade. I used to breed trees and plants and things like that, but I spent my every spare hour in the water surfing. About 2010, 2011, we had 7 fatalities in about 18 months on my coastline, and it rocked us to the core. It's a pretty small community, certainly only 1 degree separation from anyone. I started a bit of a journey of my own on trying to find out why this was happening, and how we could, cohabit the ocean together. One thing that astounded me as a natural scientist on land was how little we knew about the ocean. Here in particular in my home state, governments were making some massive calls on how to deal with an apex predator of the ocean on an absolute wafer-thin amount of information. And it really started my whole journey of learning and understanding and trying to develop products and solutions that can help us feel safe back in the water again. It's been a tumultuous 10 years for us, and I know you guys are starting to feel it now, but fortunately for us, I'm here to sort of tell you my experiences and some of the things that we've done so that we can hopefully fast track you guys to get through this stage. There's probably sort of 3 things that come to mind when it comes to sort of the key issues that we're seeing in the oceans around the world at the moment, and in my mind as well. The first one is obviously public safety, which obviously is what we're going to be talking about here more tonight. The second one is water quality. Obviously we're seeing massive impacts of human life on water around the world. Ocean plastics, pollutions, and that is becoming a big thing. And then the third aspect, which is very much around national security, which is obviously a big item here in the States. It's certainly a big item for us in Australia, being an island. So about 5 years ago now, following a spate of further shark attacks, particularly in the metropolitan area of Perth and Western Australia, we saw a government that started culling the animals right in front of our beaches. And I started doing a bit of research, and really there'd been no innovation around protecting broader beaches since 1953, which was the invention of a meshing net, which hangs off beaches and catches sharks and a lot of other bycatch as well. So I started my own journey on trying to find, at that point in time, it was 2014, 2013, 2014, there's got to be better options out there. So the result of that is a technology that we've built that we've called Clever Buoy. It's obviously a multi-tiered system depending upon its application, but what it does, and has really done for the first time, is created an autonomous 24/7 marine monitoring platform for the ocean. It uses a combination of solar power, lithium-ion batteries, and a number of different sensors to collect information and distribute information in real time. It's obviously real time, which is really important because it can provide end users with immediate information. And then it is also near the shore as well. A lot of the information collecting platforms that we have in the ocean are quite deep and are no good for us in terms of beach safety. So the first sort of issue that we were particularly keen to tackle was obviously beach safety, particularly, not only in Australia, but in South Africa, Union Island, the east coast of Australia, Florida, California, and more recently here. What we're seeing is a definite increase in negative shark interactions around the world. That's undeniable. But probably the worst part of it is the impact that it has on a community. It has a massive impact on our well-being. It has a massive impact on our economies. And even though you've probably got we do have much more of a chance of dying from driving for a surf than what you'll actually ever have when you're in the surf. The psyche that we have as humans about being eaten alive is terrible. And the impact, the flow and impact that has on the community, and certainly the people of Western Australia felt it was really important that they had access to that information in real time. So they're real-time acoustic tags. If you have one of those sharks that come within 600 yards of one of those acoustic detectors, it immediately pops up on this website. It actually gets pushed out through a Twitter feed, and you can get quite decent information about that animal as well. So that's sort of the best that I've seen around the world in terms of an alerting system. It provides the public with knowledge. It's transparent, and it's helping us get more knowledgeable about when the sharks are around, what they're doing, so we can make decisions when we want to go for a surf or take our kids for a surf, that we know we can do it in a safe manner and an informed manner. It's no different to driving to Boston and knowing how much ice is on the road for that journey. You would get told that before you got on the road, and it should be no different for when you go in the water. So just in terms of application to this part of the world, and this is entirely my work, so I take all responsibility. This is just purely for illustrative purposes. But I think that certainly for you guys, in terms of the way that you could move forward really quickly, is to get an array of live tag receivers that are real time. You can put them at spots where, which is led by science and the community on where they should be located, so that you can start to build a picture live in real time of where these animals are, when they're coming, when they're going, and build that picture up. There's also, I think, obviously the opportunity for installing one of our virtual net buoys, and I've just put one in there at Norset for no reason at all, as an example of starting to roll these systems out to create protected areas where swimmers and surfers can go there knowing full well that they're in a protected area. The live tag receivers will obviously provide you with early warning and a sort of sampled information. But if you want to be really protected, you can go to designated beaches that the community and the public decide which are important to their communities and their economies. And then, like what we've done in the West, you can just build that network, so you're getting more coverage, more information. So just better data so that you can make a better informed decision before you go down the beach. We do it in all other parts of our life before we go and do something, but unfortunately we just haven't had the technology to do that in the ocean. So I think certainly whatever solutions and options that are looked at, there's no one silver bullet for shark mitigation. It has to be a combination of different things. There are things that you can be responsible for on a personal level, and there are things that you can be responsible for on a community level as well. There are different solutions for different situations, but certainly take the opportunity to learn from the rest of the world on what they've tried and tested, and get that feedback. But certainly, I think it's important for community, certainly in my experience in different jurisdictions in the world, you've got to move hard and you've got to move fast, and it's the voice of the community that matter. People forget, and it's still pretty raw here, but in 12 months' time, 18 months' time, people start to forget and the urgency goes away. The problem, the interaction and the increased interaction between sharks is not going away. It's actually getting worse, and we haven't seen anything yet. The work that we've done in Western Australia, we've had devastation in Western Australia, yet our scientists are still saying that the white shark population is only somewhere between 20-30% of its sustainable level. So we've still got a lot more sharks to go back in the ocean, and we've got to learn to live with them, and we've got to start to be smart about how we interact with them. That's it for me. Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Chris has just asked a question about, that's all fine and dandy when you've got lifeguards around, but what happens when it's in an isolated area? The system obviously doesn't require lifeguards. It's a totally autonomous system, so if you've got, if you're driving to the beach or you're in the car park, or if you've got a smartwatch, you will get the notification. The other thing that we can do is put flashing lights or a siren on the top of each buoy so that when it does go off and no one else is around, you will actually know that there's someone there. So it doesn't rely on lifeguard integration. In the applications we've used it to date, we've integrated with lifeguards, but it can be totally autonomous as well.
Thank you, Craig. Who knew such a personal journey could go so global, and your mission of protecting pretty much the world, making people aware of it, drawing attention to it is just so impressive. So thank you again, Craig, for sharing what you have with us. Before we leave tonight, there are handouts. You'll have some handouts to give out that people can go ahead and be driven to sites, and I know we have other information to give out. Next on the panel, I'd like to introduce Megan Wilton, as I introduced earlier, is a shark researcher who's pursuing her PhD at University of Darthmouth School for Marine Science Technology, and is a part of this shark working group. So Megan, you're on.
Is this on? Okay. So thank you for those presentations. Really interesting. I have to say, it makes me a little bit nervous to be up here right now as like the local shark scientist. But I want to remind you all that yes, while I do really love sharks, I am a shark scientist after all. I am still a human, and I'm a member of this community, and I share all your concerns, and I understand where they're coming from. And I'm here because we all want to be, we're all trying to be part of this solution and approach this. So it was really cool to hear about those technologies. I'm here to tell you a little bit about, provide a brief recap of the work we've been doing for the past decade now, to try to get ahead of this situation and understand what's going on with the emerging white shark population off of Cape Cod. So I am just a PhD student. I started working with Greg Scullmore, who many of you guys know, and John Chisholm of the Division of Marine Fisheries in 2015 as part of my PhD. And I've gotten really involved since then, and we work really closely with the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy to improve scientific understanding of white sharks in waters off of Cape Cod. So I hear this from a lot of people, so I'm just going to start with a really quick recap of the history of what's gone on. I hear from a lot of people that we've never seen white sharks off Cape Cod, this hasn't ever been a thing here, and you're right, it hasn't in terms of our lifetime. But we do know that they occurred here historically. So the example, kind of a neat example I like to point to, is a passage from Henry David Thoreau's book, Cape Cod, which was published in 1865, where he talks about visiting the Cape and how Cape residents talk all about the rumor of sharks, how a fisherman talked about killing a shark 14 feet long, and he concludes by saying they will tell you tough stories of sharks all over the Cape. So it is similar. They did occur here before, but people tend to forget that. That was 1865. And so after people hear about that, they want to know, well, where have they been then? And the answer to that question is really two-part. So white sharks did undergo very dramatic population declines in the Northwest Atlantic in response to increases in fishing pressure. So that's what the plot on the left there shows. Just pay attention to those two trend lines. So if you look at where the point is in 1960, when those types of records started to be kept, you can see there's a pretty steep decline down into the early 1990s when management measures were put into place for coastal shark species, including white sharks. And so in 1993, in response to those declines, a federal fishery management plan was put into place for coastal sharks, and in 1997, the white shark was listed as a prohibited species by the federal government, which means if you're out fishing for something and you hook a white shark, you have to let it go with minimal harm. When you look at the end of the time series, both of those trend lines are starting to tick up. So it looks like management measures were effective and are having an effect. You guys all know there are more white sharks around here now than there were before. I can't give you an absolute number yet, we're working on it, but that's one of the questions our research is trying to answer. So the second component, second part of that answer is that seal populations were really, really low for a really long time, thanks to centuries of directed harvest, which included the bounty program that was active up until the 1960s in Massachusetts. So prior to the 1990s, there were 0 gray seals on Cape Cod. And then in the 1990s, I think it made the news when something like seven or 9 gray seals were spotted on Monomoy. But you guys all know that this has all changed a lot in recent history, particularly over the course of the past decade. So the seal population, particularly the gray seal population along Cape Cod, has really rebounded in response to protections that were put into place by the state of Massachusetts in 1965 and by the federal government with the enaction of the Marine Mammal Protection Act in 1972. So over the course of the past decade, we've seen increases in the seal population, and white sharks have now started showing up to the area. So Cape Cod has reemerged as a seal and shark hotspot. And so what I just wanted to remind you before I talk about the science we've been doing is that what we're seeing here, it is a conservation success story. Whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing really depends on your perspective on these animals. But whatever your take on this is, the emerging white shark population does come along with obvious public safety issues associated with having a large predator hunting for seals in the nearshore waters along popular beaches. So as we've heard today, this issue isn't unique to our area at all. People in other areas, and it's great to have people from other areas come and talk about their experiences dealing with this issue since they're all a few decades ahead of us. But I want to remind you that the probability of a negative interaction with a shark or being bitten by a shark still remains really low. I know that's not all that comforting, but it is good to know. But again, we're not going to just bury our heads in the sand on this issue and just say, oh, well, the probability is really low, that's fine. And so something we've learned from researchers in other areas of the world is that one of the best things we can do is get more information on these animals and their habits to try to learn when they might be more likely to overlap with recreational water users than not. And so since 2009, again, Greg and John started research looking at the local white shark population to try to get a handle on this. So we know why they're here. We know they're coming here to eat seals. But when this first started happening, we didn't know when they were here. So in 2009, Greg and John started tagging white sharks in the waters off of Cape Cod. They've been putting out, I'm going to say we now, because I've been part of the research team since 2015. But so we've been putting out multiple tag types to answer different questions. From 2009 to the present, we put tags out on 159 white sharks in the Northwest Atlantic. Most of those were tagged off of Cape Cod. One tag was put out off of Florida, and a few out of South Carolina by a charter captain who was putting out tags for us. And so we put out satellite tags, pop-up satellite tags, which will archive the location of the shark for about a year. Then they'll pop up and transmit all the location data to the surface, as well as real-time satellite tags. So every time that dorsal fin breaks the surface, it will transmit a location, and we'll get that information. And so the plot to the right might be a little tough to see, but all those little dots are locations from one of those two satellite tag types. And so what we found using that type of information on broad-scale movements is that white sharks are really just seasonal visitors to our waters. So if you notice, looking at these plots, in the summer and the fall, you can see they occur all along the U.S. Atlantic, but are concentrated off of Cape Cod and up into the Gulf of Maine and into Canadian waters. Then as the temperatures start to drop, they head south, where they spend the winter and the spring off the southeastern U.S. shelf and into the Gulf of Mexico. Some of the larger animals make these really interesting offshore excursions, but essentially white sharks are snowbirds. So we know that seals occur here year-round, so this suggests that the distribution of white sharks is somewhat constricted by temperature. Otherwise, they'd be here munching on seals year-round. So the satellite tags are really great for giving us a sense of their broad-scale movements over long periods of time, but they're really expensive, something like $4 grand a piece, so we can't put tags on a lot of animals. So what we use in areas where we have a lot of sharks that we want to monitor, like the coastal waters off Cape Cod, is we deploy tags that are acoustic transmitters. And so the way these tags work is every minute or so, they'll send out a uniquely coded signal, and every time a shark swims within range of one of our acoustic receivers, which we have all along the coast, we'll get a record of when and where that shark was. So those are the types of tags we put out the most. They're much less expensive. And so when we look at the detections from those tags, we can get an idea of when they're coming to the Cape. So the plot on the left shows the number of detections. I want to emphasize that that's not number of individual sharks. It's detections of tag transmissions. You can see that the peak of the shark season off of Cape Cod is from August into October. There is a large degree of variation among individuals. The plot to the right, each dot is a detection from one of those 11 sharks. You can see some sharks show up in June and leave in September, October. Other sharks don't show up until September, stick around till around November. So there is individual variation in the timing of when they're here, as well as where they are when they're here. So to orient you to this plot, the colored region is the area that's monitored by our acoustic receiver array. The yellower the color, the more detections of sharks. So the bigger plot to the left is a plot for all sharks. So you can see that the yellower area that's there are from Chatham up to Nauset, but it does extend up to the outer Cape. We don't have as many tagged sharks venturing into the bay and into Wellfleet Harbor, but when you look at the trends for individual sharks, which are the individual plots to the right, show species for 10 sharks, you can see that there's quite a bit of difference. So some sharks, such as white shark 1408, hang out in one area for the most part. Other sharks are more likely to roam the coast, and we have a few sharks that also head into Cape Cod Bay and into Wellfleet Harbor, which is a trend we've increasingly seen over the years. And so by combining data from these tag types, we've also found out that when they're here, they spend a lot of their times in pretty shallow water. So what you're looking at here are depth and temperature plots from 8 tagged sharks On the vertical axis is the depth in meters. So the points that are lower down are deeper dives of the sharks. On the horizontal axis is the date. They're color-coded by temperature, so the purpler the color, the colder the water, and the redder the warmer. And so what we found was that these 8 sharks spent the majority of their time at depths less than 100 feet, and at temperatures from 48 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. That's Celsius down there, so don't worry about that. And that individuals spent almost half of their time at depths less than 15 feet, so in very shallow water. But they did sort of alternate, make these patterns of alternating between the near shore, surf zone, and offshore. And so one thing I just want to point out about these 4 individuals that make these deeper dives is all those sharks were in Cape Cod Bay at the time that they were making those dives. And so from our tagging data, that's a really quick summary of our tagging data. I'd love to talk about it more, but I want to give you a good overview. So from our tagging data, we're getting a good idea of when and where they're occurring, but that doesn't answer another one of the big questions we have, right, which is how many white sharks are there? And so to answer that question, over the past 5 years, we've been conducting a market capture survey. You've probably heard about it in the news. We wrapped the field component of this project this past fall. And so the way we collected the data for the project looks like this. We worked with a spotter pilot who flew around along the outer coast of the Cape and found sharks. We then, he directed the research vessel onto the shark, where we essentially snuck upon it and took a video. If you look at the map to the right, all those little pink triangles are encounters with individual sharks on those surveys. And what I want you to note is that during those 5 years, we saw sharks everywhere along the Cape. I know the points are small, it's hard to see, but everywhere we saw sharks at some point. And so when we get back to the lab and review the video that we collected on those surveys, we are able to identify each shark to the individual level based on a unique set of characteristics, including injuries, pigment patterns, scarring. And so each individual we identify is entered into our white shark catalog. At this point, we have over 300 individuals in the catalog, but we haven't finished processing all the video footage we've collected yet. Over those 5 years, we collected thousands of videos. It's a very labor-intensive process, but we're getting there, and we hope to have a population estimate in the near future. So to date, we've conducted studies to determine when and where white sharks are occurring off the Cape, as well as to figure out how many white sharks are coming here every year. So in the future, including the summer, the next 5 years, we're going to be continuing our tagging and monitoring efforts to improve the information we've already collected. But there's a big part of the picture that we're currently missing, and that is what exactly are these animals doing when they're here? And so that's really a big question. So not only knowing when and where they are when they're here, but knowing what it is they're doing and how they're spending their time. So this summer, in addition to deploying the types of tags we've deployed in the past, we'll also be deploying tags with accelerometers in them. In every smartphone, there's an accelerometer. It's the device that allows you to play all those games where you tilt your phone. So we're going to be putting tags with that type of technology on these animals, which is going to allow us to get a better idea of their fine-scale movements and behaviors by looking at the acceleration time series. And to give you an example of that and how that would work, so a shark that's doing something like this, actively going after a seal, the acceleration signal that's generated from that sort of movement is going to be very different than a shark that's just swimming slowly somewhere in the water column. So using this type of technology, we're going to be able to get an idea of when and where these animals are hunting and actively going after seals, which will allow us to identify things that might correspond to that. So is it sunrise and sunset? Is it certain stages of the tide? And so by identifying those sorts of relationships, we'll be able to highlight times and areas where white sharks might be more likely to interact negatively with recreational water users. So that's a big push that we've got going on this year. We also work really closely. We're all members of the Regional White Shark Working Group. So we're working to directly incorporate all of the results of the research into public safety information and recommendations. And so that's what Cynthia's going to talk about now.
Thank you so much.
Shared with the public at the same time that it shared with the towns, which is the 6 outer Cape towns, and the Conservancy that are funding this project. So we do want you to know that action is being taken. Your input is part of this process. I will just let you know from the Conservancy standpoint, we don't have the ability to implement any of these technologies. So we are part of this process to be a resource, a community resource, and we think there's tremendous value in something like this. What I do want to stress is, and Craig had mentioned this too, and we've learned this by talking to people all around the world. There is no silver bullet. So nothing is going to 100% guarantee your safety. And so it's really important to be in a position to help. That first response, and as Ian had mentioned too, some people who survived because they had help immediately, that's going to be a significant piece going forward. How many people in this room have gone through the course? I hope if we all meet again, it will be everybody. It's free, and they'll be running these courses in multiple towns. You can get all the information on our website. So please do take advantage of this free training. And then I just thought it was important to stress that this work is going to continue. Because there's no silver bullet, this is going to be an ongoing process, I think, for us to work through this as a community. And this is our community. The Conservancy is a Cape-based organization. We go to the beaches. We have friends, I don't personally surf, but friends, some in this room, who do. So we understand the concern. It impacts us as well to have white sharks off of our beaches, and we are all in this together. So it's going to be critical to keep lines of communication open, and so I really encourage everybody to please keep sharing your thoughts and your feedback with us.
Thank you so much. Love your presentation, and you wear so many hats. Just amazing the amount of time that you give back. Also, part of this group is Nate Sears from Orleans, Natural Resource Manager. He wanted to share a couple of thoughts with the group too. Nate? Thanks, Mark. Good evening, folks.
Be a beach manager on the backside of Cape Cod nowadays, and a local surfer during a shark boom. What a thrill. How do we know there's so many sharks? It's the research. It's the planes up a couple days a week. We're doing these aerial surveys, working with the researchers, watching patterns develop. Certain times of year where the activity is ramping up. That's the key. You need to know when they're here, where they are.
Can you turn on the microphone?
Sorry about that. And then you need to modify your behavior, right? These things are evolving and feeding on the seals, ambushing, hunting the seals in very shallow water. It's scary. It's right inside where we recreate. Most of the time it's right outside the surf zone, right where the surfers are. We have miles of remote coastline here. If you come to our beach at Nauset, we have lifeguards in place. We have a protected swim area. We make sure that the people stay close to the beach during certain times of the year, mostly when the sharks are here, which coincides exactly when everybody decides to come to our beaches. If you look at the graphs Megan was putting up there, August through October was downright scary. It's somewhat disappointing dangerous to go in the waters during those times, especially with the activity we're seeing in some of these beaches, especially the fact that the areas you're going in the water are exactly where these things are rolling seals over. On a daily basis, we'll see half dozen to a dozen different sharks going through our swim area when planes are up on certain days. And those are only the days we have planes up. So you take that information and you relay it to 7 days a week during those peak times. And probably have a pretty good chance of making sure you're safe in a protected area. But the people that are most at risk are the surfers. They're the ones that are going out there outside the protected area. And there isn't defined places along this coastline from year to year where the best surf is. It changes monthly, certainly annually, sometimes weekly. Some of the challenges that we face, in managing these beaches for public safety. So I just want to reiterate that it's the most responsible thing we can do as beachgoers and watermen and women is to look at the research and the data and change our behavior so that we're not going in the water at the highest percentage of shark activity during the year. There's lots of great surf the rest of the year. I know that there's technology out there. We're going to investigate it with the Shark Working Group. But like we talked about in Western Australia, yeah, it's a bummer. But we need, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's juvenile sharks in Cape Cod Bay. We're going to start doing more research in Cape Cod Bay. But I foresee this getting worse before it gets better in terms of interactions with people. So people, please be safe. The Stop the Bleed training, we're putting those on monthly right now. If you're a waterman or a woman here, you need to take that class. Because the way this stretch of coastline is, chances are the person next to you is going to be the only one that can save your life if you're bit by a shark or one of these white sharks. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, we're all concerned, and I appreciate everybody coming out. The amount of information that we're sharing with each other is greater than we've ever done before. This only being our fourth meeting, we certainly have come a long ways, and there's a lot of positivity coming out of it. And we're working harder because we know that we can make a difference together with this. And we have people that have dedicated their lives on these journeys to make a difference for others and protect their families and their friends and others. Anyway, I wanted to introduce Chris Zocca, who has been so instrumental in putting this whole program together. The collector of research, the gentleman who invited these two out and has allowed us to work with them. Chris, can I give you the stage?
One observation I'd just like to make to Nate's comments. I think the people who ride waves, the people who surf and paddleboard, are out in the water all the time, recognize that there's a level of risk in the activity that we're undertaking. And I think the discussion that we're looking to have is how do we make that activity less dangerous? I don't think we're going to be okay with staying in knee-deep water and not surfing for 3 and 4 months of the season during the peak best surfing time of the year. So I think what we need to look at is how do we make the activity less dangerous? We recognize there's risk. We're trying to mitigate that risk. I would have a couple questions. We had hoped to discuss with the consultants who apparently are going to be retained by the Regional Shark Working Group to discuss what they were going to do. And there was some, I guess, misleading information in the paper. The papers reported that the contract had been signed, and we were told that it hadn't been signed, and tonight we hear that the Woods Hole Group is going to be acting as a consultant. And I just want to make everyone aware, because we want everybody to understand, this is a private consulting firm. This is not the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. This is a private firm, consulting firm of scientists and engineers. One question we had, perhaps one of the folks on the members of the shark working group could tell us how that consultant was selected and what the process was to settle on those people.
So that group actually was at the public forums and recognized can people not hear me? Recognized the need for such a study. It's something that they have done before, an alternatives analysis for other groups. And so they presented the idea and proposal to the working group, and we all felt that it really made a lot of sense to have a third party come in and analyze all of these strategies that have been proposed at all of these meetings.
So no RFPs or bid process or search multiple consultants, just these are the guys.
Yes.
Okay, well, as I understand it, what they're going to do basically is review and assess all available shark mitigation and management alternatives. They're going to review the available technologies, determine which are suitable for the Cape, and then make recommendations about where those technologies should be deployed. Is that kind of an accurate assessment of what they're going to do?
I don't believe they're going to actually make recommendations. They are going to rate the different, they will review and analyze the different strategies and rate them and provide that information to the working group and the public.
Okay, thank you. Then I think there are a couple of things that our group would like to say to the Regional Shark Working Group. We are very interested in working cooperatively with you. We would very much like to have a voice in the decision-making process. I think tonight it has been evident that we have people in our group like Mark who have excellent contacts with folks like Ian who have been dealing with this problem for years and years. So we think that we can be helpful as far as being able to put the Shark Working Group in contact with some people who've really been addressing this problem far longer than we have. The other point we would like to make is that engineers and scientists are good, and they should definitely be a part and a component of the process, but maybe they shouldn't be the only component. The people who ride waves all year round have practical experience, knowledge of the local waters that can only come from being out there every day. Several of them work as lifeguards at the local beaches in the summer. The knowledge and expertise that these wave riders and members of the ocean community have, I think would be helpful for the Shark Working Group. So we would very much like to talk about ways that we can interact better with you, and hopefully it will be beneficial for both of us, you and help us. So if you guys could tell us maybe what we should do to get more involved and how we can maybe become part of the decision-making process, we'd love to hear that tonight.
So just to clarify, for the decision-making process, are you talking about what strategies will be analyzed? Because that's the point we're at right now.
I think we're just talking about getting involved in all of it, having some input into the strategies that are analyzed, because I think the wave riders and the ocean community has some important input into that, and it shouldn't just be done by a group of consultants from Woods Hole. Woods Hole doesn't have a lot of waves.
As I mentioned in what I presented, the Woods Hole group is not coming up with the strategies. They are doing the analysis. So absolutely, everybody in this room should give input on what strategies you think should be analyzed. That is the information that we've been taking from these meetings, as I mentioned, also from input that we've received personally at the Conservancy and what emails and information people at town representatives have received as well. So if there is more that you would like to share, then please do. This is definitely the time to be giving your feedback so that you are involved in that process. That's a critical piece of this.
The other thing that our group would like to do is to reach out to the other members of the, I hate to use this term, but the surf community, paddleboarders, surfers, bodyboarders, boogie boarders, people who are avid swimmers. We want you to come and get involved with us. We want to hear what you have to say. We want your opinions. We want to hear your feedback because we want to get more involved in this decision-making process going forward.
Yes.
Folks, I'd like to just, give you an understanding of why we've gone about this process and why we're using the Shark Regional Working Group to help assist us with analyzing some of these technologies. You have to flip the table somewhat and put yourself in our shoes. As beach managers and public safety officials, since we've had the incidents on the beach, we've been inundated with technologies and sales, and no offense to anybody in the room, but sales pitches of all sorts of different technologies. As a beach manager, as a natural resources manager, with a degree in natural resource management, I'm not a shark mitigation expert. I'm not a scientist. I do make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen for how to manage the beach in Orleans and what would be the responsible route for taxpayers in terms of what makes sense for our town. And I listen to the people in town, and I try to be responsible with the way we spend their money. We're going to bring in a scientist or a group of scientists to look at the science, a non-biased party, and then they're going to say to Nate, hey, this might work at your beach, and then I'm going to look into it a little deeper. But I can't look at every technology that's getting pitched at me daily through emails and phone calls, and you can't expect us to do that. So there's no expert consulting firm out there on shark mitigation. So
Scientists are not non-biased parties. Not a non-biased party. You say that? I'm Paul Papados in Seashore, Massachusetts. Scientists are not non-biased parties. So,
certainly
we want to get everybody at the table here, not just the scientists. I have a tremendous amount of respect for scientists, but they have their agenda, so let's not forget that.
Nate, keep going on that one. We're going to open this up in about 2 short more presentations, 2 questions on the panels, and let's let Nate finish.
I want to encourage everybody in this room, as well as residents of each neighboring town, to make sure their voice is heard and go to their selectmen. In order to get this firm to look into these technologies, I have to go to my town and ask for money. Right? You guys need to make sure that we're spending the money right in each town that you live in. Go talk to your board of selectmen, go to public comment. Let them know you want to be heard. We're spending the money because you guys are asking us to look into this stuff. So make sure we're doing it the right way. That's correct. We got a couple of few selected here. Excellent.
So thank you. And again, this is something we need to do synergistically. We need to take all the parts, the strengths that we all have, and to create the best solution that we can. Can I ask Heather Doyle to come up here? We received a note, a letter of encouragement from Marissa Medici, which was Arthur's aunt, who wrote a letter. Just wants to share a message with us. So I'll go ahead and make one more short presentation, and we're going to open it up to